Coming up on episode 51 of Fresh Freedom, shutdown brinkmanship, Trump's historic pocket rescissions, and the one big beautiful bill delivering tax relief and border security. Epic's Brittany Madney is with us to break it all down. Welcome to the Fresh Freedom Podcast, featuring freedom-focused representatives who are fighting for conservative values and defending your constitutional rights. I'm Nate Lucas, joined by Representative Eric Burleson from Missouri's 7th District, and our special guest is Brittany Madney, the Executive Vice President of the Economic Policy Innovation Center, or otherwise known as EPIC. She served as a congressional aide and trusted senior advisor for a decade on Capitol Hill, developing a nuanced understanding of the legislative process with an emphasis on budget and appropriations strategy. Very impressive resume.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome back to D.C. I mean, August recess. We got the National Guard on the streets. It feels safe. It's a little cleaner.
I didn't see the homeless people in the normal camps that you typically see. Like just outside of this building, there's usually a handful of homeless people. There's actually a median where some guy has had an encampment for quite the entire 2 years that I was.
Yeah, the big blue tent.
Yes.
It's gone.
And it's gone. And that guy on occasion would just kind of go into a tirade, and you kind of like, you're kind of like when you're walking by, it's very unsettling. You don't know, you have no idea what these people are going to do at any moment. So luckily I didn't have anybody attack me, but I mean, they have been attacking a lot. There's other members of Congress that have been attacked, have been mugged, not only by a lot of these teenagers in this town, which is crazy that you're like, if you're in Navy Yard where you live and you see a group of a dozen like 14-year-olds, that you turn around and go the other way.
You also walk by them and just kind of say a quick prayer, like, please don't let me be the victim here, And that, I don't care what they say statistics-wise. I really don't. The perception is that it's dangerous, and we've all heard stories and we've all watched the news. It needed help.
It needed to be addressed. And I think that there is also a question about whether or not these statistics were reliable to begin with because of the mayor's catch and release policies that she implemented during the pandemic for these 14-year-old groups of youths. I think that on its own has really suppressed some of the data, and that's not reflective of reality. As you were saying, Navy Yard was pretty bad.
Well, have you ever been on the Capitol Mall and you actually see like a gang of teenagers on motorcycles?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, doing wheelies and stuff.
Like tearing up the Capitol Mall, and you think, how in God's name are they able to do this on the nation's capital? It's shocking that these teenagers can just get away with whatever they want to do.
It'll be interesting to see like where the president, if he tries to go into other cities. I mean, in Missouri, you got St. Louis and Kansas City, which are crime-ridden. Obviously, Chicago, like the big cities that are run by blue mayors and have blue, all over them. Those are problematic. I don't know if he has the constitutional authority to do all of it, but we always talk about messaging a lot on this podcast, and I feel like from a messaging standpoint, how can you continuously defend violence of any kind? It's I don't know. It's encouraging to see that actually policies do work enforcing the law.
Isn't it remarkable that if you actually care and you enforce the law? And I think that Trump should, this is my view, and I sent this message to his team. We'll see if they take this as a suggestion. But I know he's looking at going to Chicago or some of these other states. I think he should do a twofer. Make the offer or try to go into Chicago, and then also at the same time, I don't know, like a red state governor, like a state Republican governor state, like Missouri would be a perfect example. St. Louis, right? St. Louis needs help, and the governor would be open arms, welcoming Trump to come in to clean up St. Louis. And then if you juxtapose that with J.D. Pritzker and him saying, no, we don't want any help, we're just going to let Chicago burn. Right, that would look even worse, as if Trump just was, you know what I'm saying, just
solely going after a Democrat.
Yeah. So to me, it's like I think that's a political opportunity, and it's really not just political; it's the right thing to do. Like St. Louis and Chicago are the top next to DC, like the top murder capitals of America.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's a question of focusing resources where they're going to be the most useful, right?
Mhm.
And obviously, there's a lot of crime across the country targeted in some of these blue states and big city urban areas. If the mayors and governors aren't going to make the most of an opportunity, then it's kind of a waste of resources. So it does make sense to collaborate with local and state law enforcement, where they're actually going to allow the not just the reduction in crime in the streets, but the prosecution of the criminals after that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good point, because then if, let's say, Pritzker did agree and tacitly or just kind of partially agreed, then you could kind of compare the results and say, no, look, Missouri, they really got behind it and they worked with, the Trump administration to clean up the streets. Chicago, not so much. And you can see the results, right?
The other element to this is the beautification process. I mean, I think it's awesome to hear somebody actually talking about wanting to make Washington, D.C. as beautiful as you possibly can aesthetically. And, even like the Kennedy Center, for example, I mean, he's going to go in there and beautify it. He kind of does have a knack for cleaning things up and making them aesthetically pleasing. Look at the Trump Towers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very fiscal conservative.
Okay,
I'd probably sell it
Yeah.
and let somebody in the private sector who wants it figure out a business model for the Kennedy Center. But that's my view. I'm just I'm to the right of Attila the Hun. I recognize that.
I was going to say, I like the idea that he's talking about the fact that we should be proud of our nation's capital and we shouldn't have debris in the streets and things like that. But I don't really like the idea of spending federal tax dollars on these projects.
Yeah, Nate, you
I'm
squish.
sorry.
Come on.
You squish.
Man,
Gosh,
where'd they find
Squish
me?
Central over here.
This mod
My
over here.
gosh.
But so just to finish on this is one of the things Harriet Hageman and I were having this conversation that it's more than just the crime. DC has an underlying problem when it comes to economically, right? You can't get an affordable house. And the reason is because they've made it unaffordable. All of their rules and regulations, when you talk to anybody that has a home in DC, and they try to do a renovation,
It's impossible.
or the buildings across the street here that they bought and are trying to renovate, the nightmare stories of them having to deal with the city on building codes and stuff like that. It's like beyond. It's more than safety. It's not about safety. It's about, like, you know what I'm saying, like historic preservation and
A lot of labor laws. Some of the stuff takes years to go through the permitting process in DC. That's
environmental
absolutely
reviews
suppressing
and
economic growth.
Yeah. And so that kind of stuff should be cleaned up. We were talking in our office, if we're going to eliminate this home rule stuff, what else are we going to do? Because like it's annoying just even navigating this city, right? Because they've eliminated driving lanes, replaced them with bicycle lanes. So you have bicycle lanes both sides, but yet there's nowhere to drive, right? It's like they don't want you to drive around in this town.
Yeah.
And then they won't let you turn right on red now. That was just passed. So there's no
That
right.
just passed? Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm from Florida originally, so that's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah. I mean, that is weird. And then the other thing is, like, the red light cameras are everywhere. So if you turn right on red, this is a money revenue scheme, really.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, I understand that there are residents and DC natives, but this is more than a city like any other city, right? Like, it is the capital of the free world. It is the American people's city.
Yeah, that's right. It's not their city, it's the nation's
exactly.
city.
Every citizen has a right to come here, to talk to you, to be able to walk freely down the street and see what belongs to them.
Yes.
It all comes back to whether or not that's being enabled right now.
Well, good stuff. Let's talk briefly about the One Big Beautiful Bill, which passed 4th of July weekend. It seems like a long time ago now, but we were talking in the weeks after it passed, and sometimes after that long fight, you feel like, did I get enough? Did we get enough in there? But Epic really was leading the charge, particularly with things like Medicaid fraud and, welfare programs that have just been riddled with waste, fraud, and abuse. And then tailing off of that, I'm curious, you spending the last month all around the district, what the reaction has been from constituents. In particular, I know you had an opportunity at the Missouri State Fair to kind of talk about the agriculture wins, just some of the response that you've heard.
Overwhelmingly positive, really. I mean, people are generally positive. I mean, there's concern about the debt and that like people are disappointed as I am as well that we didn't make as much spending reductions as possible. But look, I mean, this town, these people have not cut any spending in decades. And so it's like, let's get this rusty thing moving, right? Let's turn the crank and at least get some rust off here and then start building some muscle memory of how to make real spending reductions. But overall, I think what I've heard has been very positive. And I'll say your team at Epic was epic in this because you guys really bring it. You bring the research, you bring the know-how and the insights. I think I can confidently say that your team at Epic is the most educated and like that was the asset that those fiscal hawks like us leaned on the most, and I can't thank you enough.
Well, I mean, that's just music to my ears. That's what Epic strives to be. I know we've talked about this before, but our goal isn't to tell you what to do as a member of Congress. You're the one with the election certificate, not me, not anyone else on my team. Our goal is to provide you with the resources to make the best possible, hopefully the most fiscally responsible decisions for your constituents. And we looked around and we didn't really see anyone else providing that service and thought, this isn't the way to govern. And so we're honored to step into that hole and help you all do what you need to do.
Very impressive, or epic, as you appropriately pointed out.
The puns abound.
So we're now at the end of this month. The government shutdown is looming, and it's interesting to read all of the headlines and the media spin on it. It's like the big bad, boogeyman is coming if the government shuts down, and there's so much hysteria that goes into it. But I think it'd be helpful maybe if we just peel the onion back a little bit and get away from Washington, D.C. There are a lot of people who are like, wait, what? We just passed a big, beautiful bill, massive amount of spending, and here we are now being sort of taunted with a quote-unquote government shutdown on September 30th. So can you kind of walk us through this process?
What are we talking about here? Yeah. Well, we have a series at Epic called Epic Explains, and I know you have Burley Explains.
Oh, wow. You watch my podcast.
Absolutely.
You and like 5 other people.
They're probably all at Epic. But in your reconciliation episode, you walked your viewers through the difference between mandatory and discretionary spending. And I think that's a good place for us to start when we're talking about a potential shutdown versus what we were dealing with in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OB3, is a reconciliation bill. It was dealing with taxes or revenues and mandatory spending. So that's sort of welfare spending, autopilot spending. In contrast, on the other side of the ledger, only about a quarter of all spending out of the federal government is through what's called discretionary spending. That is what most people think of when it comes to federal spending overall. So the Department of Defense, all of our spending on war fighting, all of our spending on things like the EPA, for example, the highways through the Department of Transportation, all of that is coming out of discretionary spending. That is handled through the annual appropriations process. It's actually the only spending that members of Congress are obligated to vote on every single year. So that's kind of crazy in itself, right? That you're really only voting on a quarter annually. So when we're talking about a potential government shutdown, and I'll tell you in a minute why I hate that term, what we're talking about is only a quarter of spending. the reason people get so concerned about a stoppage of government operations is that all salaries and expenses for federal employees are done through the appropriations, through this discretionary process. So if those dollars are not approved by the end of the fiscal year, so midnight on September 30th, then federal employees are not allowed to work because they're not authorized to be doing so and to be paid to do so. Programs that are under the discretionary side of the ledger are not authorized to continue. And that would put a halt on operations until Congress passes some sort of appropriations bill.
So worst case scenario, it's really only 25%.
Worst case scenario.
But usually it's not even 25%. They will cut it, pare it down like 8. I've heard like 15% or something.
Bingo, because there is an allowance for essential versus non-essential activities.
Right.
So if something is designated an essential activity, then it can continue on a temporary basis even without funding. So for example, you have members of the military, like my husband who's active duty in the Army, he would be expected to continue working without pay. And typically, almost universally, this was actually written into a past appropriations bill when this happened before, there's a guarantee that you would get back pay once the government reopens.
Yeah. So, and that's what's happened in the past. Like my friends that worked the federal medical prison in Springfield, Missouri, in the administration side, who were deemed non-essential, essentially got a vacation that eventually they got paid for, but and so it's not exactly the ideal scenario. But the question is, to me, I think that it's something that you shouldn't take off the table in negotiating, right? So if you come at this with an attitude of we can't let the government shut down, then you've already given in. You've already given up any negotiating that you could maybe do.
So Epic's president and CEO, who I know is a friend of yours, Dr. Paul Winfrey, hates the term shutdown because he likes to remind us there's no such thing as a government shutdown. Yeah. It's a temporary slowdown in non-essential activities that the taxpayer is paying for.
I'm going to use that.
I like that.
I'm going to use that. That's good.
So the appropriations process, you were discussing it like a couple of weeks ago on former Representative Bob Good's podcast, and you were discussing kind of how it worked in your days in the Missouri State Legislature compared to the U.S. House of Representatives. And I don't think that all 12 appropriations bills have ever passed in my entire life. So I guess the question is the process broken, or what is the deal? Why can't Congress just do its job?
It's absolutely broken, the process. I mean, whenever I came up here and I sat down with Paul and they walked me through how the appropriations process worked, because I understood it from a state level, but it was so convoluted and I couldn't kind of figure out what the game was up here until I sat down with him and came to the conclusion that it's totally messed up. Totally messed up. There's nothing that really binds members of Congress to do anything. And so because of that, like ideally you're supposed to pass a bill that authorizes the spending out of the subject matter that it, like, for example, transportation, like you authorize so much money to pay for roads and bridges and stuff. And then it's appropriated. So then it goes to I forgot one step. First, it's supposed to be budgeted. So like everything should be established under a top line budget. That doesn't ever happen. Then it's supposed to be authorized and then it's appropriated, right? They usually skip step 1 and 2 and just wait till the end of the year until we get to this government shutdown, and then they just appropriate. And they appropriate things that are no longer authorized. They appropriate things that are not in a budget. And the reason why they do is because they can, right? And if you can, and you're the speaker, then why wouldn't you? Because you're eliminating all of that mess. You're keeping all the decision making and that decision matrix, close to chest with your team of staff. And you're the ones that drop drop the appropriation bills at the last possible second before Christmas and tell people you got no choice. So until we change the system, it's going to continue this way.
I think one of the biggest challenges with last minute appropriations is that you end up negotiating with yourself instead of actually negotiating maybe with the other side or for the American people. And by the way, when I say the other side, I mean the other chamber.
Oh, okay. Right.
Between the House and the Senate.
They say up here, they say the Democrats are your adversaries. The Senate is the enemy.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's really important for the American people to know that you should go through this process, right? Because when you're appropriating, like, it's literally every dollar that we're appropriating is coming out of your paycheck. Like, this is not, there's no magic money tree in the basement of the Capitol. This is real money that real Americans are working for. And so then the idea that we would just spend trillions of dollars in one blink without having gone through these sort of methodological steps, it's just a little insulting. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's broken.
It's very broken.
So at this point, who would you say has the leverage right now? I mean, they're Chuck Schumer came out earlier today and was sort of not thrilled with the pocket rescissions that sort of, they're saying, started the beginning of the back and forth.
But the pocket rescissions are pathetically small. I don't understand how he can possibly
$5 billion
throw a fit over USAID. I don't know. You probably know better than I do, because I've not seen how this kind of plays out when when we have control and what the minority is going to do. But right now, if they want to do a CR, you're going to have to get Democrats to vote for it, because there's people like me that are not going to do that. And then they'll extract a pound of flesh. So we have an opportunity to leverage that and say, you can get my vote, but you're going to have to reduce spending by XYZ amount, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of, I look at that as leverage opportunity as a conservative.
I think conservatives hold all the leverage right now. Chuck Schumer can say whatever he wants to say. It's not like he was ever going to come to the table in good faith and make a deal on this. He's predisposed to wanting to oppose anything that the Trump administration does, anything that the Republican majorities in the House and Senate do. Why would he ever start off a negotiation by saying, oh, yeah, we're here to figure out how to fund the government responsibly? No. Today it's pocket rescissions that he has a problem with. Last month he had a problem with OB3 and said there's no way we're dealing with government funding because we can't trust Republicans on the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or whatever the statements were. There's always going to be something. So I don't think that holds a lot of water. When it comes to pocket rescissions specifically, it's less than $5 billion, $4.9 billion. I brought some examples to share with you. 15 rescissions identified in total. They're all targeting wasteful foreign aid spending, including about $322 million for the Democracy Fund for projects like advancing global, let me make sure I get this right, LGBTQI plus awareness. There's too many letters to keep up with these days. So advancing that, funding articles on the white people problem in South Africa. That's a quote, just to be clear, that's not my words. $14 million for development assistance that was going toward electric buses in Rwanda, green economic opportunities in Honduras, and ecotourism in Peru. Things like baking and beauty therapy. I'm not even sure what that is.
I didn't know. I've never heard of that before.
Baking and beauty.
Neither did I. I guess I need to learn how to do my nails and bake a cake at the same time or something. But I guess I'll just stare at my spreadsheets instead, since I'm not getting this wasted funding anymore. And then, I mean, frankly, the one that was the most upsetting to me is there are millions of dollars going to UN peacekeeping operations when the UN peacekeepers themselves were accused of assault and rape. So I don't really think that Chuck Schumer should cause a government shutdown showdown over less than $5 billion being stopped to horrific projects like that that are either just straight up criminal or a blatant waste of taxpayer dollars. Like, none of those things are going toward like security operations in Somalia, which is what a lot of these dollars were actually intended for. No, that's going to green energy in Rwanda instead.
I guess we know, though, that the political gamesmanship of this is, which side can seize more of pain in the other side. So if Democrats look at it and say, well, this is an opportunity for us to pin the messaging on the Trump administration that he shut it down, and you got midterms kind of down the road. I mean, at some point, I guess both sides have to sort of look at which cards you want to play, and I guess we got a few weeks before you have to play your cards.
Yeah, and the tension will build between now and the end of September. It's just going to build and build and build. There will be a lot of, strategy sessions and conversations that will happen. But all of this should have been happening months ago. We should have been trying to pass these appropriation bills.
And I will say, the Appropriations Committee has been doing work. I think there is some frustration there because the committee has been producing bills. I know you all are slated to vote on one on the floor this week, energy and water. Is that right?
Yeah,
I think so.
That's right.
So it's not like there's not something to start the conversation with. There's something to start that conversation with. And I think that it's really incumbent on conservatives to take a hard look at what the leverage opportunities are, how to improve the legislation, and if it's not going to ultimately be passed, make a decision about what a CR has to include or exclude to be something you would consider. So one thing I would encourage, get rid of some of these insane earmarks coming out of the Senate in particular. The House, we can have a debate on whether or not earmarks are acceptable in general. The House at least has a pretty rigorous process for review of earmarks. It's not so in the Senate. So there's some pretty crazy stuff that they've included.
So one of the theories that's floated or strategies floated is to demand a 1-year CR at static level and without anomalies. Where would you, is that a viable strategy, and is that a good plan?
It's a viable strategy. Congress can do what Congress wants to do. I would be cautious about saying no anomalies at all, because you may want to deal with rescissions through an anomaly. You may want to ensure that some of these items that we've been talking about today and in the August rescissions package or in the earlier rescissions package, you may want to make sure that those dollars are not carried forward from a previous CR. So that could be treated as an anomaly.
Okay. So everything that's rescinded, cut that.
Yes.
But you'd have to do that as an anomaly.
You would probably need to write it as an anomaly, yes, because the way a CR functions, you're picking an underlying text and then drawing it forward, right? So you have the covered item and then a date forward that you're moving.
You're just moving the date forward.
Right. So the last CR included funding for those programs. So you would need to turn that off proactively.
Okay.
Well, Brittany, we greatly appreciate your insight and all of what Epic is doing to guide, information to Congress
And then your website is fantastic. Tell us about your website.
Thank you. So you can find us online at epicforamerica.org. I know you check us out all the time because you're so up on all of your graph usage. But
we stole so much from you guys.
Yeah. It should be like Burley Explains presented by.
But yeah, if you go to epicforamerica.org, you can find all of our papers, all of our research, our infographics. Our goal is really to break things down in a way that's as accessible as possible while simultaneously putting out original research. We're also on Twitter. or X, whatever it's called now, at Epic for America. But if I could plug one thing that we're working on right now, we're looking forward to a Reconciliation 2.0 opportunity. And you'll see on our website that we've just released a memo on Reconciliation 2.0 and what could be included in a policy agenda for that.
Ooh, I'll have to go check that out. I'm going to look for that.
A little teaser for you.
Okay.
Great stuff. Brittany, thank you. Congressman, thank you very much. You can catch Fresh Freedom on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, X, and Rumble. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Stand strong, stay informed, and keep fighting for freedom.